Hi, welcome back to Akamai TV. I'm Anthony Larkin. The digital experiences that you and I connect to every day have become richer and more engaging than ever before, but at the same time, they've become, the user expectations for how those should perform has never been higher. Now, Rigor is a company that helps organizations meet those end user expectations with monitoring and optimization technologies. I'm joined today by Craig Hyde. Craig's the CEO of Rigor. Craig, thanks for being here. Now, tell me, has online web performance really gotten harder?
Absolutely. I mean, we talk about this a lot, where the expectations of users are getting much higher and higher. The richness of the content that we're delivering to people on their phones and all their different devices is becoming richer and richer. But at the same time, the complexity of the applications that we're building is getting much higher. So and it's also becoming much harder and harder to get your control around it, because the controls becoming released farther and further out, and then the rate of change is higher. So yeah, absolutely, it's becoming harder and harder to manage this, because we talk about how we're here at Edge, right? And we talk a lot about how the computing has moved from like one single box in a mainframe to one single room in a data center to multiple data centers in the cloud. And now we're talking about pushing all our content out on the edge on hundreds of thousands of servers. And that same kind of concept is going on in the way that people are building applications as well. So the average web page today loads 75 different files from over a dozen different third parties, and the rate of change is going higher as well. So we used to do waterfall development, where we would release a single release a year or a single release a quarter and test it and going out the door. Now with Agile and CI/CD, we're releasing 10, 12 times a day, and so are all your third-party content providers as well. So there's just a lot of moving parts in there, and the expectations are increasing, and the complexity is increasing as well. So it's becoming a really hard problem to solve, for sure.
It definitely sounds like the complexity, itself, and as this change happens, the evolution of how we, build and deliver these experiences has changed. What can organizations do to keep up and stay ahead of the curve and meet those expectations?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we advocate for at Rigor, which is our company, we advocate for building a performance culture. And the idea that performance isn't just paint that you could apply on at the end of a development cycle and just do it once and you're done. We want people to think about building performance best practices into their life cycle. And so we go from a reactionary wait for something to break and start building software with performance in mind from the beginning. So it's kind of an overall culture shift that we recommend, because the rate of change makes it so hard to just go and find and fix it once, and you got to kind of build it into your life cycle. And so that's sort of the concept that we advocate for.
So can you give me an example? Like what does that look like?
Sure. So from a practical standpoint, the first thing that you have to do is get an understanding of what is performance, but you also have to know that it changes, right? And you see what your users are doing, you understand these are your critical flows, and we have monitoring technology. We also pair with Impulse from the real user monitoring technology to get visibility and just kind of at first get an understanding of what's going on, and then start to make improvements, right? So it's a reactionary but also proactive. And then in the long term, to create that culture of performance, we think of the idea around building software with performance in mind, releasing software with performance as part of those gates in your CI/CD. So in the same way that you're testing for, does the checkout button work, let's also check to say, have we improved or degraded performance? Did we introduce any large pieces of content? Did we hard code around our CDN? Did we do any number of these 300 best practices that we know indicate you're going to degrade the performance of the site, and have that built into the process, into the gates of how everyone's developing software. So every release, every iteration that goes out the door, the idea is that you ultimately want to have the site and the performance getting better and better instead of getting worse and worse, and you kind of get this situation of death by 1,000 cuts. So that's the overall process that we think about, and then the way to do it is kind of with monitoring technology to get an understanding of what the current performance is, but then also take that same yardstick and put it in the development and put it in the CI/CD pipeline so that you know, as you're building software, you have the confidence to know that you're making the experience for the customers better and better. And so that's the process that we advocate for and that we implement at our customers.
Great. So it is getting harder. Performance is getting harder, but it's not impossible. And organizations can meet these end user expectations if they develop a culture of performance and integrate into how they build and deploy the applications, not just an after the fact consideration.
Absolutely.
Craig, I really learned a lot today. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. That's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for joining us at Akamai TV, and we'll be back just after a few moments.